Dowling, and welcome to the UC Davis Continuing and Professional Education Accounting Program Information Session. We're really glad that you could join us today, and I'm going to just tell you a little bit about our program and then answer some of your questions. So obviously, because of the shutdown, we're all using new technologies. So I just wanted to let you all know that heaven forbid we get interrupted or kicked off. We're just going to try to get back on, so just be patient with us. If you have any technical difficulties along the way, you can't hear us or you can't see anything or you can't submit a question, hopefully you can still use the chat feature to let us know. We're just going to do our best to get through. And also want to let you know that today's presentation will also be recorded and posted on our website. So if you aren't able to stay with us the whole time, you will be able to watch the recording afterwards. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so here's our agenda for today. Obviously, you know about the $100 discount for attending live. This is a really great opportunity to get some money off of your first class. As I mentioned, we are recording and we'll make this recording available, but only those of you who attend this live will get the $100 discount code. And that's we're gonna talk a little bit about that later. I'm going to talk a little bit about the program. There's a lot of ways you can take advantage of our courses, and I want to make sure that it's clear all the different paths you can take. We're going to hear from one of our instructors who we interviewed earlier, and we're going to hear from one of our alumni who we also interviewed earlier. And we're going to talk a little bit about financing your education, how much the program costs, and different funding sources that are available to students. And then we're going to open it up for questions. So if you have questions along the way, feel free to type them into the Q&A box. In some cases, if we can answer them, we will. But in most cases, we're probably going to collect them and then just do a question and answer session at the end. All right, so I always like to start with a question. And what I'd like to know first is, how did you hear about us? And so Jen Knudsen, who's joining me today, Working Tech, is going to pop up a poll. And so basically, we're just asking, did you hear about us from word of mouth, personal recommendation? Was it on the internet? Or did you get a paper, brochure, or mailing? We really want to put our efforts to the right place, and we don't want to waste money on paper mailings if that's not what anyone's using anymore. And then there's also a choice for other, just in case there was some other avenue that you learned about us. And I'll give everybody a second to fill that out. All right, let's see what we have. Oh yeah, okay, so 2 of you heard about us from word of mouth, 80% from the internet, which totally makes sense, and nobody from a paper brochure, and then 2 of you in another way. So that's really helpful. So that really confirms what we know, and we really want to put our communication efforts into online. Thank you. All right, so a little more details on the $100 discount. So we are going to be following up this webinar with an email to each of you, and in that email Jen is going to include the discount code that you can use. I do want to point out that UC Davis doesn't allow people to combine discounts, so if I mention some other discounts throughout the presentation, you're going to want to look at all the ones you're eligible for and use the one that gets you the best deal. But if you're not eligible for any of the others, this $100 discount could be a really good deal, and you can use this off your first class. All right. So as I mentioned, I'm the program manager, and Jen, who's working tech today and handling your questions, is the program representative.
Hello, everybody.
And Jen's probably one of the people you'll talk to if you call in or write in to learn more about the program. But I also want to let you know about our student services staff, because they man the phones Monday through Friday every day. And so I don't want you to get caught up, playing phone tag with Jen or I. You can absolutely start with student services, and they can help you out with all the basic questions: when courses are offered, how much they cost, how you need to pay for them, what kind of prerequisites you need, anything like that. But as you get into the program and you have more advanced questions about your course plan or your performance or the assignments, that's when you'd be working with Jen and I. All right, so one more poll. I want to know a little bit about why you're interested in doing our program. And this will help me know what kind of information that I should provide to you. So we've got some choices up here. Perhaps you're currently working in accounting and you just want to advance your skills. Perhaps you're looking for a complete career change. You're not working in the financial field, but you want to get into it. Perhaps you already have a lot of the skills and knowledge, but you need a certificate for your current job or for a job you want to apply for. Maybe your goal is to sit for the CPA exam and you need the academic coursework to qualify for that. That's very common. Perhaps you're doing our courses to fulfill the prerequisite for a master's in accountancy. And lastly, just you're a lifelong learner and you just enjoy learning and you want to expand your knowledge. And we get that a lot. Sometimes we get independent business owners or other people who work tangentially with finance and they just want to understand enough to be able to do their jobs. Okay, we'll see what people say. All right. Oh, wow. This is really great. So about 36% of you are already working in the financial or accounting field and you're looking to advance your skills. It's very common. About 40% of you are career changers. That's really exciting. I mean, one thing we really pride ourselves on here at UC Davis is we're open to anyone. We don't have really any entry requirements for our program except a high school diploma or GED. So we really consider ourselves a great resource for not only people who are looking to advance their skills within an existing discipline, but people who are looking to learn something brand new. And that's fine. You don't need to have any previous accounting experience to do our program. About 5% need the certificate. About 23% of you are looking towards the CPA exam. 14% of you are interested in a master's, and we'll talk about that a little more later. 14% of you are just learners. That's exciting. And we sometimes get that with UC Davis staff. They just want to learn a little bit about accounting so they can do their jobs better, or just to see if maybe it's a profession they want to look into. And then about 9% of you are interested in some other path, and that's fine too. All right. So I want to give you some basic program information. Because we're so flexible and we offer our program in so many ways, it can be a little overwhelming when you go to our website. And that's one of the main reasons we hold these information sessions, to try to clarify things. So all the accounting courses we offer are online and they're all 4 credit units. The courses are what we call asynchronous, which means that while you have weekly deadlines and assignments, you're not required to do anything at a specific scheduled time. There's no live classes. Everything is pre-recorded and available online, so you can watch at your leisure. And we find that works really well because a lot of people are on swing shifts or they're in other time zones. And this way, it's completely up to you how you manage your time. You just have to, every week, you turn in your work. You can take the courses as part of an academic certificate, or you can take them individually. And that's not the case at all universities. So that's something we really are proud of. So we do offer 2 certificates in accounting, which I'll talk about in a second, but we also allow people to just take one-offs. So say you're working in accounting, maybe you had some accounting courses as an undergraduate, but you don't know anything about auditing, and now you're looking to pursue a job in the auditing area. You could come in and just take our auditing class, and that's fine. So I did mention we have 2 certificates. We have an accounting principal certificate and we have an accounting specialist certificate. So if you complete both certificates, which would be a total of 9 courses, that would be enough credit units to sit for the CPA exam. So the way we design it is the principal certificate is really meant for people who want the basics in accounting. They just want the core courses. It's 4 classes. And they're each 4 credits, as I mentioned, and people could even do that in a 1-year period. And you could take those classes, and then that would prepare you to work as a bookkeeper, a financial assistant, a financial clerk, a financial analyst. But for other people who want to go farther, they would do the accounting specialist. So some people do both principals and the specialist. That's someone maybe who's a career changer and wants the entire coursework. Some people, perhaps someone who was an accounting minor in college, they already have the core classes. They just want to jump right into the specialist certificate. That's fine too. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. And Jen and I are happy to talk with you if you're unsure what category you fall into. But basically, we have many different paths depending on what your experience is, what coursework you've already done, and what your goals are in the future. We know that in accounting, a lot of times people have taken some of the coursework elsewhere. We do allow people to waive prerequisites if they can demonstrate that they took, like say, a Principles of Financial Accounting course elsewhere and achieved a grade of C or better. And we also will allow people to substitute a course for one of our certificate programs, just 1 course per certificate. But if you did take it elsewhere and you have to meet some criteria, But if it's an academic course, comparable content, comparable credit units, it's within the last 10 years, and you earned a C or better, you might be able to substitute that into our program. And that's something we can talk to you about individually. And then the other thing I want to mention is that we do design our courses for working professionals. The majority of our students are working full-time, taking care of family, or maybe going to college full-time and taking our courses to offset that. So that's why we make them so flexible. But these are college level courses. They're 4 credit units. So if you are working full-time or have a full-time obligation, we do recommend that you just take 1 course at a time. We really want you to be successful. We're not going to stop you from taking more than 1 course. Sometimes we'll have people in between jobs who want to double up, and that's fine. But given the amount of work you're going to have to do, we just recommend 1 course at a time. All right. So I want to go over the certificates a little more specifically. So the first certificate I mentioned was the Principles Certificate. Principles of Financial Accounting is the first course in this certificate. It's also what I would call Introduction to Accounting. It's also the prerequisite for any other course in our program. Now, this is commonly a course people have taken elsewhere, so that's something we can talk to you about. But if you're starting as a career changer, you would want to start with this class. This is the key to everything else. We do allow people to take this class concurrently with other classes if you're doubling up. The next course you'd want to take is Intermediate Accounting Part 1. This has to be taken prior to Part 2. It cannot be taken at the same time. And then the 4th class is Principles of Cost Accounting. And there's some flexibility about the order you do these. You have to meet the prerequisite requirements, but we can help guide you depending on the schedule of when the courses are offered. Depending on when you start, like start in the fall, you go one direction. If you start in the winter, you might go a different one, and we can help you with that. Now, the Specialist Certificate, as I mentioned, is really meant for someone who either has completed our Principal Certificate, although that's not required, or someone who has some accounting coursework in their background and they want to dive into the higher level courses. This is made up of 5 courses. As you can see, they're all higher level topics. These particular courses are generally only offered once a year. So you're really going to want to take a look at the schedule, talk with Jen and I about how to plan out all 5 courses. And these courses can be taken in any order. Once you've completed Principles of Financial Accounting, Intro to Accounting, these courses all stand alone. And as I mentioned before, all 9 of the courses we offer equals 36 quarter credit units, which is the requirement to sit for the CPA exam. But I do recommend anyone who's very serious about sitting for the CPA exam visit the CPA board website, and Jen will include that in the follow-up email because they have some other requirements and such that you're going to want to be aware of. I always like to emphasize that our program is academic coursework for the CPA exam. It is not test prep. There's some great private sector services out there like Becker Test Prep that offer testing practice or classes to teach you how to take the test, which I highly recommend because it's a very difficult test. And that's something we can help you with, but you would do our coursework first, and then when you're ready to sit for the exams, you may want to look into some test prep. So those are the courses in the program. Those are the various certificates we offer. As I mentioned, you're also welcome to take individual courses as long as you meet the prerequisite requirements. There's also several ways you can pursue a certificate. So the first way to pursue a certificate is what we call kind of the old-fashioned way, and that is at your own pace. Our organization allows 5 years for you to complete the coursework in each certificate. So say you know you want to do both of our certificates, but you have a very hectic life and you need as much time as possible. You could complete the Principal Certificate in 5 years and then go on to the Special Certificate and take 5 more years. That's definitely the longest path, but it is allowed. When you take the courses on your own, you pay as you go. So you pay for each course as you enroll in it. You're going to pay a certificate registration fee somewhere along the way, usually right along when you take your first class or just after your first class. That lets us know that you're not just doing classes a la carte, you actually are pursuing the whole certificate. And you would be eligible for individual discounts, like this coupon for today's information session. You could use that towards one of your courses if you're doing the at your own pace model. Also, if you are going to do one of our certificates, you do need to earn a grade of C or better, 74% or above generally, to have it count towards the certificate. A C minus and a D might be passing, but they don't count towards an academic certificate. The other option is something that we introduced last year called the fast track. And we did this in response to students who said, you know what, I just want to get through this as quickly as possible. I know I want the certificate. I'm committed to doing it. I don't want to worry about enrolling every quarter. I don't want to worry about dragging it out. I just want to do it quickly. I want you to tell me the best order to take the classes. I want to pay up front. Maybe my employer's helping me out or I have loans. And by paying up front as part of the fast track program, we do offer the steepest discount, which is 15% off all your tuition, and you waive the certificate registration fee. So this is the best deal financially. You also get priority enrollment in all the classes because, for example, if you were to start a fast track in summer, you would sign up for the whole program and we would just enroll you right now. So you'd already have a spot in next winter's class, you know, before it would fill up. I do have some caveats about the fast track. It's an amazing tool for people who know their plans, have very clear goals, have a predictable lifestyle, and have the discipline and time management skills to commit to doing your classes in a continuous manner. The only time the fast track might not be good for you is if your life is unpredictable, if your work is seasonal, because you can't take a quarter off and you can't pause it. So when you join the fast track, you're in it, you finish quickly. If you have to drop out of the fast track, you might incur fees or penalties. And I'd hate to see that happen. So Jen and I are always happy to talk to prospective students about what path might be better for them. I also like to point out that if you decide you don't want to do the fast track because you need the flexibility, either financially or time-wise, but you still think, I want to try to finish in 12 or 15 months, that's fine. Just because you're not doing the fast track doesn't mean you can't go fast. You're just doing it with you're paying a little bit more of a premium to have more flexibility. All right, so coming up this summer, I know a lot of you ask about what's the next opportunity to take classes. We will begin a new quarter of classes on June 29th. All of our classes last 12 weeks, so it'll go through September 20th. And these are the 4 courses that we're offering over the summer. As I mentioned, some of our courses are offered, Principles is offered every single term. Other Principles certificate courses are offered every other quarter. And then the specialist courses are only offered once a year. So if you're interested in the specialist certificate, you really are going to want to plan out your time because you're going to want to make sure you take things in the best order to maximize your time. And if you're ever unsure of what you want to do, we always say you can't go wrong with starting with Principles. And then that way you don't have to declare a certificate right away. So take Principles and maybe then you'll know, ooh, I thought I was just going to do the initial certificate, but I love this. I'm going to go ahead and do both certificates and all 9 classes. That's fine too. All right, I'd like to do one more poll. Now that you know all the different ways you can do our program, how do you think you might pursue it? So do you think maybe I'm only up for taking individual courses right now? My life's too unpredictable. I'm not even sure I want to do accounting for real. I'm going to just check out a course. Or I'm all in. I know what I want the certificate, I want it quickly, I want to pay up front, I want to get a huge discount, I'm going to do the fast track. Or I know I'm going to want to do a certificate, but I'm going to do it at my own pace. My life's too unpredictable, I just want to take it course by course. I might take a few quarters off as my life gets busy and then return to it. Or you're just not sure, and that's fine too. I'm going to give everyone a minute to fill that out. Let's see what we have. Oh, good. It's pretty spread out. So about 30% of you are just going to look at individual courses at this time. Absolutely fine. About 20% of you know you want to do the fast track, and that's great too. That's a really easy way to sign up and have everything taken care of for you. About 43% of you know you want to do a certificate, but you want the flexibility to do it at your own pace. No problem. And then about 10% of you aren't sure, and that's fine too, and we'd be happy to talk with you more individually about that. All right. So I did want to take a moment to introduce you to our instructors. So one thing that makes our program unique is that all of our instructors are working accountants. So they all are CPAs, they all work as accountants during the day. Many of them also have master's degrees. And they're people who really, they not only know how to teach, but they also know what the work world is like. And that makes it a real benefit as you go through class to talk with them about what is a career in accounting like? What should I look for when I do an application? Is a CPA credential required, or can I buy myself some time and make sure I want to pursue this before I sit for the CPA exam? All right, so at this time, I wanted to take a moment, hopefully technology will cooperate, and I want to play an interview I did with one of our lead instructors, Jim Beneman. And Jim works at the State Controller's Office. He teaches our auditing class, and he teaches our accounting for government and nonprofit class. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. All right, here we go.
Well, thanks, Michelle. I'm excited to join this presentation today, and welcome here to my office here in Sacramento. Indeed, I'm at work today,
Yeah, exactly.
just like you said. And yes, I've got some emails from students today asking questions.
Yeah, we appreciate you. Yeah, Jim's really responsive and really great working with the students. Jim, just to start off, I'd like you to tell everyone a little bit about your background and how you came to be an accountant.
Well, as I tell people when I tell my story, when I was a young man, if somebody would have told me when I was in my 20s that I would be end up in the accounting profession and I would be a CPA, I'd have told them they were nuts, because there's no way that I would have done that. My father was a CPA, and he worked really hard, and I wanted to go a different direction. So when I went to school, my first degree was I had a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Communication Arts, because I wanted to go in the broadcasting business. And I did that for a while. I went into the Air Force for a few years and worked in Armed Forces Radio and Television Service, which sent me overseas, and that was all fun. But there came a point when I had a kind of an epiphany, I guess you'd say, and I thought, do I really want to pursue this career, or do I want to do something different? So at the time, this is before the internet. As you can see, I'm not exactly a young guy here. So there was one day that I was wondering, well, I wonder what kind of jobs are out there. So I picked up a copy of the LA Times on a Sunday and looked at the job ads, and I noticed there were 6 pages of accounting and auditing jobs. So I thought, well, maybe this is something worth looking at, even though this is what my dad did. But maybe I should take another look at it. And well, as it turns out, I went back to school and got my master's degree in accounting. I went to the University of Cincinnati and graduated in 1979 and started working in banking. So I spent my first 14 years in the banking industry. And the banking industry was a pretty good place to work, but it got to a point where banks started to buy and sell each other. So I thought, well, maybe I should make a career change to something else. And I moved to California and ended up with a job here at the State Controller's Office in California, where I've been now I just had my 25th anniversary here just a few months ago.
Wow.
So along the way, I got my CPA certificate in 2004. So it's been a pretty good ride. This has been a really good career for me, and I've been working for UC Davis Extension since 2011. Back when I started with the school, we had only live classes, so I've seen us transition from doing all live classes now to all online classes, and so that's been fun to be a part of. So.
Jim, you brought up a good point, and I want to make sure that I'm clear on something. So you mentioned that you'd worked for the state for a long time as an accountant, but you didn't actually sit for the CPA exam until about 15 years ago. So is it true that to hold the position of accountant at the state of California, you don't necessarily need a CPA?
No, there's no requirement that I'm aware of in any organization but the state to be a CPA. Generally speaking, the requirement to be a CPA is in private accounting firms. But here at the state, folks want to be a CPA because they want to use it as a way for promotion and to get into management primarily.
And mastery, right?
Yeah, well, that too, yes.
No, that's a very good point, because I want to mention that because a lot of people come into our program and their goal is to sit for the CPA exam, but that is a very challenging exam. And so I also want to let people know that this could be a journey. You can take our courses. If you decide to take our courses a la carte, you have 5 years to complete your certificate work. So really don't overpressure yourself. Remember that there's a lot of job opportunities with accounting knowledge that don't require you to necessarily sit for the exam. And that's something you can do as you get further along in your profession. So Jim, what would you recommend to students who are looking to start the program and take your courses?
These courses are they're pretty fast paced. We move along at a good pace. In my auditing class, we go through 21 chapters in 12 weeks. In the government accounting class, we go through 18 chapters in 12 weeks. So it moves along at about the same pace as a master's program. And what I've always told all my students in my classes is that if you don't have a background in accounting terminology, you haven't taken any accounting courses at all, then you're probably going to get lost in the first couple of weeks, because both of my classes presume you have an understanding of accounting.
And the prerequisites too, which are several.
Right. Yeah. But, and I've noticed that I have a mix of students that are in all different places. Some of them have accounting degrees. Some of them have degrees in all types of things. And they're scattered now all across the country. And if they're willing to put in the time, there is a lot of time required to work on these courses, because like I said, if you look at my textbook, it's a lot of complicated material, and we go through it pretty quick, but we try to, through the lectures and the homework, try to make it, simplify it as best we can so it's understandable. And so it seems to work, because most students do pretty well.
Yeah, and that's something I want to let people know, because we often get that question, how many people succeed? The high majority of our students pass our courses and successfully get a certificate in the time they allotted. So I think most of our students have some college under a belt. You're not required to, but they understand the importance of studying. It's really about putting the time in. I don't think it's rare for us to encounter a student who doesn't have the capability to fulfill the course requirements. Right. It's really just whether they have the discipline and time to put in the commitment. And as I mentioned, for a 4-credit unit class, you're going to want to plan about 10 hours a week per class. So you don't want to overload yourself. There are weekly assignments and weekly due dates, which I think really helps keep people on task. But also at the same time, the majority of our students are very successful. And so I think if you're realistic and you plan ahead, you'll do fine. So I do want Jim to ask you to talk a little bit, since you are a career changer yourself, I'd like you to talk a little bit to our career changers, because a lot of people come in and they're worried that they're already going to be behind, or that it's going to be too big of a change. So if you could talk a little bit about your experience with students who've been on that path.
Well, yeah, I had that same issue, because when I decided to go into accounting, I was already in my early 30s. And, usually by the time you're in your early 30s, a lot of people are expecting you to have already a career in mind and be well along the path. But I decided to switch midlife, I guess you'd say. But it worked out. You're never really, we have a wide range of people here at our office. We have a lot of young folks in their early 30s and 40s, and some older people. I think what I would say for career changers, if you're going to the accounting profession, you need to kind of figure out whether you want to go into auditing or accounting, because those are the two main professions for accounting jobs. They're quite different jobs. In auditing, you can be an external auditor or an internal auditor. In accounting, there's a wide range of different things that you can do. But they're very different kinds of jobs, and that auditing requires you to usually go out to somebody else's place of business and figure out how their accounting system works, and work with accounting statements and compliance issues, and work with people a lot. Accounting jobs mean you're probably sitting at a desk creating financial statements or financial reports, and you're doing a routine over time, over 30 days, 6 months, and a year. So they're very different jobs. And the other thing I would say is, I've heard people say, I want to get a job in accounting because I can make good money. And that's about the worst reason to go into a job. If you don't have a passion for working with numbers, and also working with people that, work with those numbers, you may make good money, but you're not going to like it. So.
That's a good point. That's a valid point. We noticed in our poll that kind of the largest group of people who are here today are interested, at least at some point, in sitting for the CPA exam. We talked a little bit about that, but and we'll talk to a Becker rep later on in the webinar. But anything you'd like to share about the exam in particular from your experience? Well,
exam is certainly difficult. That hasn't changed over time. I get a quarterly magazine from the Board of Accountancy, and so the pass rate is still running around 50%, and it's been that way for years. The exam is quite different now than when I took it. When I took it, it was a paper exam. Now everything's online. So it's a different process, but the exam questions haven't changed any. You're still required to understand a lot of material. And I think the thing about the CPA exam, it's not, if you're smart enough to pass college courses or get a degree at a college or university, you're smart enough to take the CPA exam and pass it. What makes the exam hard is the amount of material that's on it. I used to go into it. I remember going into the CPA exam, I felt like my head was the size of a basketball because all the stuff I jammed into my brain to pass the course. And that's what makes it hard because of the amount of material. But there are really good resources out there for studying for the exam. The Becker course is one of them, and we'll be talking to a Becker rep here shortly. There's a lot of other materials that you can use, and I know that I used, and it worked out really well. So that's, yeah, in a nutshell, that's pretty much.
Be prepared. Yeah, don't underestimate it. Yeah,
it's not easy by any means. Yeah, but it's doable.
Okay, well, that's always good. So Jim, before we leave you today, well, Jim will stay with us for the Q&A, but before we move on, is there anything else you want to share with people interested in taking our courses?
Well, our courses do cover a wide range of subjects, whether you're going to be a career changer or for the CPA, studying for the CPA exam. I know I've talked to the different instructors that you saw their pictures here earlier, and I feel like our program really does a really good job of explaining how accounting works out in the real world. I've always marveled at, courses I've taken in the past at college, at how you take a course and you go through this textbook and you get out in the real world and it's different. Well, I know in my two courses, that's definitely not the case. And I've always enjoyed hearing from students that have taken our courses. They get back to me sometimes and let me know how things worked out for them. And it's exciting to hear how they've gone on to bigger and better things.
Yeah, no, that's great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jim.
Well, thanks, Michelle.
All right. Okay, thanks so much for watching that video with me. I think it's really helpful to hear from one of our instructors. He did mention in the past we've been able to host a Becker test prep rep. We're not going to be able to do that today, but Jen and I are happy to give you any information you need if you think you want to hear from someone at Becker, or you can contact them directly. They're really a great resource for people who are focused on the CPA exam and are ready to take the test. All right. So I want to talk at this point a little bit about the details of the cost, because I know this is a big concern for a lot of people. So our tuition for each course is $880 per course. As I mentioned, if you decide to do the fast track program packages, you will save 15% off of every single course. So that's quite a bit of savings. If you don't do the fast track and you do get a certificate, you are going to want to pay the $125 certificate registration fee. I always also like to mention that like many college courses, textbooks are extra. And the textbooks in the accounting courses, they can be a little expensive. More and more of them are being made available online, but I would definitely budget about $100 per course for the textbooks. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we do offer the discounts. We offer the fast track, that's the steepest discount, but we also offer $50 off every course if you enroll early. We offer $50 off to any member of the Cal Aggie Alumni Association. You can get 10% off if 3 of you from the same organization enroll at the same time. And as I mentioned earlier, you can't combine the discounts, so you're going to want to assess which discount is best for you. All right. So because we're not a matriculated degree program, we're not necessarily eligible for the same kind of financial aid that you might have been familiar with as an undergraduate, but there are a lot of options to help finance your education. Jen will include a link in your follow-up email, but there's some good information on our website, and it's under our Student Services office under a tab called Financing Your Education. But it talks about loans and training funds that are made available to our students. We have some preferred lenders and partnerships on loans. There's also a lot of job training funds out there that students take advantage of. If you're a veteran, there's all kinds of tuition subsidies and reimbursements. And there's also tax credits for educational expenses. So anyone who has specific questions or wants to find out if they might be eligible for this kind of support, I highly recommend contacting Student Services directly. They have student services specialists on staff who focus on this and are very knowledgeable about the different options. All right, so one last poll for everybody, especially given what we've talked about people being career changers or maybe coming from different backgrounds. I am curious if you've taken any accounting courses in the past. This just helps me know how many kind of introductory courses we should offer. So some people, if you've taken some, maybe just here and there in college, or perhaps you were an accounting minor or major, or you were a business or economics major, or you haven't taken any accounting courses at all. You're a complete newbie to it. That's fine too. And while people fill out the poll, I did want to share another way to think about our program. Sometimes people will say, well, what will I get from your program to make me competitive? And the way I like to characterize it is, if you were to do, say, our principal certificate, that's pretty much the academic equivalent of having an accounting minor as an undergrad. And if you do both certificates, that's the equivalent of having an accounting major. So that's something to think about. Maybe you did college, but you majored in something else. Our program offers an opportunity to build on that. All right, so about 30% of you have taken some accounting classes or finance classes. Nobody was an accounting major or minor, no problem. That's what we're here for. About 30% of you were in business or econ. That makes sense. And then about 43% of you haven't taken any. No problem. Like I said, we offer our Principles of Financial Accounting course, the introductory course, every single quarter. You can start any quarter. Emily Anderson, who teaches that course, is amazing. She understands what it's like to be a career changer, what you need to know to start from the basics. And so you'll be in really good hands. All right. So at this point, I wanted to, since we're not going to be hearing from a Becker rep, I really did want to offer an opportunity to hear from a graduate of our program. So we had an opportunity to interview Terri Taylor, and Terri did all 9 courses in the program. She knew she wanted to sit for the CPA exam. And Terri actually did sit for the CPA exam. And she currently works as an accountant, and she recently changed jobs, and I got word from Professor Veneman that she's actually working at the state controller's office. So he was really thrilled to have her back working with him. So I'm just going to take a moment and let you hear from Terri.
Well, Terri, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself? Obviously, you have a lot of experience in business, and we would love to hear about just that sort of brief intro to yourself, and then we'll ask you some questions.
Certainly. I am a business professional. I started off in technology straight out of undergraduate about 20 plus years ago. And I morphed into more of a business sales and marketing role. And that's where I spent the bulk of my career. But what I started looking at during some shifts in our economy back in 2008, I looked at the turnover in my industry. I looked at, where I wanted to be 20 years from now, career-wise, and starting to augment my skills. And I started looking at what industries were very stable and what kind of professions were pretty much ubiquitous. And accounting is an excellent profession. I did a lot of research on the profession, and it's in every industry. Everywhere you look, there is a need for an accountant or a CPA. And so I started researching the programs that were available to me and seeing how they would, augment my skills. And the people that I talked to, and a few of the professors, they talked about accounting being a recession-proof profession. And as someone who is currently working in an accounting role and going through a lot of interviews, I can tell you it absolutely is a recession-proof industry, that profession specifically. My background was pretty much, it was utilizing a lot of aspects of thinking like an accountant, but there was a lot of information that I needed that accounting provides. Accounting is a language of business, and it fills in those holes that you don't necessarily have in your toolkit. And so it made me a better, well-rounded professional. And now I'm seeing that bridge, that connection in the different industries I've looked at and interviewed with as an accountant. And it's just created this complete picture for me where I had those knowledge gaps before. I don't know if you want to ask me a specific question or just.
Yeah, no, that's great. So when you were looking, considering your options, how did you choose UC Davis Extension? What appealed to you?
You know, I had compared quite a few programs, and I started narrowing them down based on a couple of key things that really were key for me. The modality was a big factor. Were the classes available online? The quality of the instruction, you know, were the instructors real world experts in their respective areas of accounting? Were they strictly academians? Cost was another factor, and timeline. How long would it take me to complete the program? And so when I searched for a program that I thought would fit my particular needs and, you know, balance with my work life, you know, home life, UC Davis was on the top of my list. I looked at the cost. It was equal to any other program out there, but I noticed that it was, you know, less costly. I liked the profile of the instructors. I liked the modality. I consequently completed my entire program online. I had given myself 2 years to do it, and I completed it in about 18 months. And, you know, just looking back, one of the major things that appealed to me with the extension program at UCD was that it assumes you have no prior accounting experience or education. And that's where I wanted to start, because my goal was to become a CPA and to schedule my first exam this fall.
So
It was something that was important to me because some programs out there, they required a prerequisite or two before you can enter a certificate program. That just feasible.
Okay, so Terry, I think we're getting a little bit of interference with your audio, so we'll just try to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We'll just try to keep an eye on that. I know that you were just sharing that that the fact that you could enter the program without necessarily prior experience or prior educational requirements was a key point for you. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Great. And what are some of the key skills that you learned, or like some of the projects that you worked on or things that you did in your classes that really translated into your career that you saw an immediate gain from?
Well, at the time that I started the program, I was serving on a board of directors as the finance and budget chair. And my second class that I took was in governmental accounting. And I was amazed by the immediate connection of being able to apply what I was learning about governmental and nonprofit accounting to that environment, and being able to take very technical information, being able to communicate with the accountant for the nonprofit and break down those, numbers to non-numbers people. The majority of our board was not comprised of business people, but of educators. And so financial statements were not something they were used to looking at. They weren't used to looking through things like that and making very wise decisions financially, determining how they would, allocate money for the nonprofit. So that was an immediate use of those skills. And I also was, let's see, at that time, I'm trying to think, I took governmental accounting, and I also took financial statement analysis. And that was, again, another huge skill set, asset for me, because it was just a great pairing at that time. And, since then, just looking back at all the classes, each class, you're going to walk away with a skill set, because accounting builds on itself. One of the things you will learn as you progress through the program, every course you take has significant tools to teach you, and they build on one another. And there, is this entire quantitative and very conceptual thought process, these skills that you develop throughout the program. Another very essential skill set in the governmental accounting is when I transitioned into doing internships with the government and working on governmental financial statements and being able to work on different federal awards, I was able to translate those skills directly from the class into those particular jobs and those roles. Overall, there's just so much you will gain going through the program. You will become, very well versed in accounting. You will learn the core essentials that you need to prepare you for the CPA exam. And you will feel confident when you come out that you are capable of going into any entry-level accounting position or preparing for your CPA exam, whatever your particular goal is. You will be prepared. The instructors are excellent. Their experience is, you're talking about people with over 20 and 30 years of experience in the bulk of these courses. So my being able to approach them with questions that sometimes, yes, they were founded in the particular class I was taking that quarter, but a lot of times I was applying them to my job or my service on that, on the board of the nonprofit. They were able to answer questions that otherwise I would have to figure out on my own.
That's
and
great.
so having that accessibility to those professors was hugely impactful for me.
Great. And what advice do you have for prospective students?
My advice is to really look at your work-life balance and know that this particular program, for me, my life was super busy. Just as a caveat, while I was attempting to get through my program, I was also in graduate school at the same time. So I was handling a master's degree plus this program, work, and serving on a nonprofit. I wouldn't suggest going through a master's program at the same time, but I was able to do that because the modality of this program, being able to access my professors, time management is your biggest skill to managing your course load. My biggest advice to you is to look at your current work schedule, because most people who are going through extension are working professionals. Look at your work and life schedule and know that you can get through these classes and you can do very well in them. I was able to look at all the classes being offered each quarter, and I literally scheduled every single class through my entire program during my first quarter. And I was able to adjust my work-life balance with my academic pursuits. Every single quarter I knew how to plan and schedule my life. And you want to look at your program the way you look at a job. You want to set aside time to be in class, to participate in your chat room, to deal with your homework, because when you're dealing with an online program, if you choose to pursue all of your classes online, you need to really manage your time. That's one of the biggest takeaways I had was time management, but I did it. And if I had to do it again, I would do this program again.
Great.
Because it was excellent for me. It really was easy to manage my time. I got really good at that.
All right. Well, I hope you found that helpful. I really think that Terri did a great job highlighting what the student experience is like and what she got out of the program and how she chose our program. So I'm glad you got to hear that. All right. So the one last thing I wanted to talk about was a master's in accountancy. So a lot of you indicated that you might be interested in pursuing a master's down the road. So UC Davis Graduate School of Management does have a master's in accountancy. It kind of runs in tandem to what we do, but I always like to let students know that their program does require some prerequisites before you can even apply. And we have several of the courses that fulfill those prerequisites, such as Principles of Financial Accounting and Managerial, or we call it Cost Accounting. So if you are interested in the master's, doing our program is a good way to get your feet wet, kind of make sure you're interested in accounting and you excel at it, and then you can pursue the master's program. And I recommend checking out their website since obviously they have all their information on there for anyone who's interested in that. So at this point, that concludes the formal presentation for our webinar, and I really want to take a moment to open up the floor to questions. I know that Jen's been collecting some questions along the way, and this way everyone can hear our responses. So what did people have to say, Jen?
Sure. So we had, one of our questions was, is the Fast Track program classes pre-recorded or are they live online lectures?
That's a great point. So I forgot to mention that the Fast Track, the courses you take with the Fast Track and the courses you take at your own schedule, exact same courses, same curriculum and everything. So that's important to know. There's no difference. It's just how you package your approach. In the online classes, they are all pre-recorded. Now you have a live instructor, you have a teacher who is there with your class working with you. And our classes tend to be small, anywhere between 12 to 28 students. So he or she works individually with you. They're going to give you feedback on your submissions. They're going to do videos. They will do some kind of ad hoc videos that they record that are customized to your particular cohort that term. And they'll go over exercises and problem sets and try to help people. Like she'll, do a weekly video saying, a lot of you struggle with question 7. Let me show you how it's done, that type of thing. So it is interactive. But we've really resisted doing live lectures because we wanted people to be able to access the material anytime on their own schedule.
Great. And we just had a question about the master's program. Some, just because you just mentioned it, and someone wanted to know, can that be completed online?
I'm not sure. I know for a long time that was in the classroom only. So many things have changed this year. I would check with the Graduate School of Management, UC Davis Graduate School of Management, and just find out.
And I can provide that link if anybody needs it as well. So, and
Thanks,
also if you go on our webpage, which I'll send you the link to, we actually do have a link to the graduate school as well. So you can contact them directly if you needed to.
We have a link to the CPA board as well on our site, so that helps.
Yeah, exactly. Another question was, someone wanted to know, do they need to be there at a certain day and time to take the class?
Yeah, no, and that goes back to the no live sessions. So you don't have to be anywhere at a specific time. And in fact, some of our students are in other countries, some of our students are on the East Coast. So the only obligation you have is that throughout the week, you need to watch the videos, do the readings, do the assignments and everything, because everything's going to be due at the end of the week. So that's the only kind of hard deadline you have, is that everything has to be turned in online at the end of the week. But how you do your homework or learn the content is totally up to you. And of course, we always tell people you're welcome to communicate with your instructor, but remembering that they're working professionals. And so, you don't want to write to your, if assignment is due midnight on Sunday, you don't want to write to them at 11 o'clock on Sunday and say, I don't understand. You have to realize they need a little turnaround time too.
Sure. And someone had a question, is are textbooks included in the tuition?
No, and I did mention that textbooks are separate. So if you're getting reimbursement or applying for a loan, you're going to want to factor in the cost of each class, either the Fast Track package cost or the cost of each class, plus about $100 to $150. The textbooks keep changing on us because so many are going online and becoming cheaper. But better safe than sorry. And chime in here, Jen, if you've seen different numbers, but I'd say about $100 to $150 per course is a safe estimate.
Yeah, that seems about safe. So like I said, sometimes it varies. But yeah, a lot of what we're finding now is a lot of publishers are choosing to use online books. So when you enroll for a class, you'll be getting your information about the textbooks. Sometimes if you enroll in our Fast Track, because it goes so far out, you might just have something that says textbook to be announced, and then either I myself or another programmer would contact you to give you the updated information about the textbooks when you got closer to that quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I had another one who asked me, another person who said, are the classes by quarter or semester?
So here at UC Davis, we do operate on a quarter system. That's why I mentioned that for us, all of our courses together is 36 quarter credit units. So I did have a note here, 4 credit unit class at UC Davis on the quarter system. I don't have it with me, but it's the equivalent of a little more than 2 semester units. So for those of you who are transferring credits back and forth, or maybe did your undergraduate work at a semester-based system, we can help you correlate that. But for example, the CPA board requires 24 semester units or 36 quarter units of accounting coursework. So we make those translations. And then the other thing people sometimes ask, because UC Davis main campus has 2 summer sessions that are abbreviated, we don't do that. We offer our courses on a quarter system, and we have a quarter every season: fall, winter, summer, spring and summer quarter is just one 12-week quarter.
And someone wanted to know, do you need a specific operating system or programs to complete the coursework? For example, a personal computer or a Mac?
You know, it doesn't matter. I've taken our courses myself, and I've used a PC, I've used a Mac, I've used a laptop. They all work. All you need is just a stable internet connection. We use something called Canvas Learning Management System. It's a very common management system. I found it really easy to use. And it does have a mobile feature, but we always tell students, and you'll get all this information when you enroll, the mobile feature is great for checking your grades, maybe watching a supplemental video. You don't want to take your tests or submit your homework on a mobile device. You want to have a laptop or a computer of some type to do that. And it doesn't really have high requirements, just any kind of modern, stable system.
Mm-hmm. Someone wanted to know how much Excel skill is needed to complete the course.
So this has come up over time. Some of the classes, like tax accounting, he does ask students to do a lot of their submissions in Excel. So it wouldn't hurt to have a basic familiarity with Excel. I don't think he's asking you to do pivot tables and really advanced stuff, but you're going to want to know how to use Excel or Google Sheets at a basic level to do formulas, to do multiple tabs. So if you're thinking of doing the whole program and you're really not familiar with Excel, it's probably worthwhile just to do an inexpensive Excel class at lynda.com or something, just to kind of make sure you're prepared.
And another person wanted to know, is it possible to see a syllabus before the class starts?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we used to have one online. If it's not online, you can contact us at the email on the screen, and Jen can send one to you. We usually just share the one for Principles of Financial Accounting because that's a class that most people take. And it'll give you a sense of what the course looks like.
Sure. And we had another question about, do classes use Wiley Plus or something similar for textbooks, assignment problems, quizzes, exams, that sort of thing?
So we have been most happy with McGraw-Hill Connect, which is very similar to Wiley Plus. And we use that in 3 of our classes currently, and we're looking to expand it to more. The only reason we haven't expanded it more is sometimes the publisher that has the best online tool doesn't have the best textbook, and we want to make sure we're using the best textbook. But we are introducing the online resources in our classes because it is such a great boon for the students.
Okay, and I had another question about course substitutions. Can one course from a different institution be substituted for each certificate? Or
Yes.
is one course only for both programs?
No, it's one per certificate. And so in accounting, you get off lucky in that we've split the program into 2 certificates. So yeah, you could do like Principles of Financial Accounting for the principal certificate. And then if you took, say, auditing somewhere else, you could apply to have that as a substitute for the advanced certificate. So yeah, you could do well. And again, just to, because this is a common question, to substitute a course for our certificate, it needs to be of comparable content, which fortunately in accounting is pretty common. It needs to be of comparable credit units. And so that's something Jen and I can help you assess if your other course was on a semester system or such. And if you have to have earned a solid C or better, and it can't be that old. Remind me, Jen, how old are the courses?
So for a course substitution, it has to be 5 years or less.
Yes. Okay. So that is a little more generous for a prerequisite waiver.
Yeah. So, and also like, I'll give you my contact information with the follow-up email, and also you can contact the email above. But if you want to attach an unofficial copy of your transcript, I can always have a look at it. If you're thinking that you might want to do a prerequisite waiver or a course substitution, I can definitely have a look as you're making your decision to let you know what your options are, if that's something that you want to be considered for.
Yeah, and sometimes what also helps us if you have a syllabus from the course, or you can cut and paste or do a URL link to the online catalog description of the course, because some universities do, the titles can be very different, and that'll help Jen and I assess whether the content's the same.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
So it looks like it looks like we've answered all our questions. If anybody else, feel free to answer. I know, Michelle and I kind of compile a list of some common questions that we also get as well.
Yeah, so one of the questions we have gotten in the past, and I thought was a good one, was how many classes should I take in a quarter? I work full time. As I mentioned, we recommend as a default 1 course per quarter, but as Terri indicated, some people finish faster and they'll take 2 classes a quarter or even 3 classes a quarter. Because we designed our schedule for working professionals, sometimes it's not like, we have people who come to us and say, oh, I have this special type of funding that requires that I'm a full-time student. Our program's not the best match for that because we don't really design it to be full-time. It's meant to be part-time. So sometimes what you'll run into is the schedule doesn't allow you to take more than 1 or 2 classes a quarter. If you're doing the fast track, that is going to be 1 course per a quarter. Another common question we got is there a recommended order? And I kind of touched upon this a little bit because it gets a little overwhelming with the prerequisites, but for the principal certificate, you definitely want to start with Principles of Financial Accounting. You could take that with another course if it was offered in the same term, like Cost Accounting or Intermediate Accounting Part 1. You are going to want to take Intermediate Accounting Part 1 before Intermediate Accounting Part 2. So that one has a lot more structure to it. For the specialist courses, the 5 of them, as I mentioned, stand alone. As long as you meet the prerequisite of Principles or Introduction to Financial Accounting, you can take the specialist courses in any order. It doesn't matter. And you can take them concurrently as well. Like Financial Statement Analysis is offered twice a year, so you could take that alongside one of the others. And then, the last question I get sometimes is, when is the best time to start the program? Because we are geared towards working professionals and we're not really on a student schedule in the traditional sense, there's no bad time. We have designed our program that our entry point is at every single season. So fall is very popular, I think, because people still think of fall as back to school, but you could start our program summer, winter, it doesn't matter. We have the same paths are possible in any quarter. All right. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and put the student services information up here again, just because that's a great place to start. And I really want to thank everyone for attending today, and thanks for your flexibility during this shutdown as we made the most of our technology. And thank you so much for attending. We're going to be sending out a follow-up email, but if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us by phone or email. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.